Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Do you believe in miracles? Oh my God! This is Tom Healy, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jeffrey Ryan. Jeff, today we cover one of the really great moments in pro wrestling history, and certainly a very pivotal night for the wrestling business. But first, how the hell are you doing?
Man, talking ECW, man, what is not to love? I was, great coming back last week, our first episode of the new year, number 2, we are rolling now 2020. So this should be good stuff. And so, and the fans too, like you and I, we're talking just our shoot jobs. You and I are spending a lot of time together this month just because of that. And so you and I are bouncing ideas off each other, coming up with different things. And so, and then we made some plans for early April. I heard that there's a wrestling event happening. So who knows where the payoff's going to show up. And so always very exciting things. I'm doing good, man. Like, it's been a good week. I got the day off. It's good stuff. So
well, you bring up an interesting point. 1 second we're having a serious business conversation, and then the next question I ask you is, all right, so which WrestleMania matches should we cover?
Right. Yeah. What events do we want to go to WrestleMania? Would you rather do SmackDown or NXT? Yeah, that's.
I was talking about the matches that we actually want to cover for the show. But yes, then also the WrestleMania trip, because that'll be fun too. But no, I was talking about how
yeah.
I'm like, hey, what do you think? Michaels Flair, or do we go with the WrestleMania 10 ladder match, or? There's some good Macho Man stuff. So we're definitely going to be covering some WrestleMania stuff headed into WrestleMania season. I'm obviously a major WrestleMania mark, and really almost anything that took place from WrestleMania 1 to 10, I would love to cover any of those big matches. So there'll be a lot of good stuff for us to cover in the coming months. That's for sure.
I think you and I are both the fan of the 2-day WrestleMania, though. At least I'm in that court. I don't know about you.
I'm warming up to the idea of it not being 1 7-hour show. Yes, that's correct.
Which more than that when we're there. So, but that's part of it, I guess. So that's all right. But
yeah, and on a completely unrelated note, if anyone's attending WrestleMania for the first time and needs some advice or some guidance on how to navigate the events and where to buy tickets for and when to buy them, hit me up on Twitter at PayoffTom. I literally could probably write a book on it at this point, of just trial and error of trying to learn seating charts and events and logistics around WrestleMania weekend. So happy to help.
Take the pillars into account always. So
yes, pillars for outdoor shows into account. That's my number one piece of advice.
Right. So of course, as always, everybody, good stuff happening, but subscribe to The Payoff, give us those 5 stars, spread the word about the show. We know you can find us everywhere. We always have fans asking us, what platform are you on? We're on them all. You can find us, even if, people listen to us on YouTube, like there's no video or anything, but you can just throw us up in the background, listen to us that whole time. We're all fans of that too. So, of course, we're out there on every platform that you listen to us, but also Tom and I, we love our social media, part of what we do. So find The Payoff on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just at Payoff Pod. Tom already gave his handle at Payoff Tom. I'm at Payoff Jeff. We are out there. Just expect to see a lot, especially just with us kind of rolling back into it. But hey, like I said, we love interacting with our fans. Always say, we'll give you the GIF reply. So definitely reach out to us and drop a line. So Tom, what else you got?
Nothing. Just thank you for listening. Thank you for a great first show back into 2020. It was fun to get back in the swing of things, and a very well-received show last week with Billy Gunn talking about the New Age Outlaws joining DX. And, as always, check out some of our greatest hits in the archives. Tell your friends, make sure to share it. That's how we grow. We're not putting billboards up on the highway or taking out commercials during Raw. So we get, new listeners and fans of the show by all of you sharing it and spreading the word. So we really appreciate you doing that. Jeff, give them a quick rundown of how we do things for anyone new to The Payoff, and we'll jump into things.
Of course, as always, we give you that deep dive into a match every Monday. And every episode, you guys know it, those three parts: the build, the payoff, the aftermath. We talk about what happened before, we talk about what happened during, we talk about what happened after. Plain and simple, you guys. That's what we are all about here on the payoff. Then after that, we look at those reviews. We try and find some different places, kind of what were the write ups, what were people talking about the time. And then, of course, Tom and I wouldn't be a wrestling show if we didn't give it a little bit of a score, kind of our feelings, what we're thinking about. And so throw that out there as well, too, for you guys. So, good stuff. We're looking forward to this one. But, Tom, I'll kick it to you first. Everybody knows you make no secret of your ECW markness, but how come you wanted to talk about this one?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think this whole Terry Funk winning the title, it's I don't want to say a lost moment in the wrestling business, but a bit of an underrated one. Okay, I for whatever reason, I just think this gets kind of lost in the ECW shuffle of greatest moments, and I loved it. And I'll get more into it, but I loved the idea of the veteran winning the title, and I wish we saw more of this. The other thing too is, as I said in my intro, this is just a massive night in the history of the wrestling business. So I love talking about it. I love reliving it. I love hearing stories from behind the scenes. There are some documentaries that have bits and pieces of some of the backstage stuff that day. But I'll tell you what, I really wish that we had like a WWE Network 24/7 type documentary to cover everything that happened in this evening, and that we could relive it, because it would just be fascinating to watch. So I love what took place on screen. I love what took place behind the scenes. I love the moment that ends the show that we're here to talk about. Jeff, what about you, my friend?
Yeah, and while you're always been the ECW fan, I was not as big a follower, or even really a follower when it was happening, and so, but I've enjoyed every single kind of one of these matches that we've talked about, times that we've brought up a match, these moments, whatever it might be. We're kind of getting into that point too, where whether it was known or unknown, kind of the WWE bankrolling things a little bit as well. And so I always like kind of, thinking about that a little bit in the behind the scenes stuff that some of it we didn't know anything about. So I agree with you. I'm like I wish we had something. I know the Paul Heyman network special was really good. He gets into this a little bit. And so there's more him and Brock in like their relationship, but there was still some really good things there as well too. And so, and while, some of these matches, we don't make secret of it. We don't shy away from the fact that some of them are hard to watch, like just some of the moments, kind of what they were doing, but that's what ECW was in a lot of ways. Like you said, instrumental in kind of what it gave back to just the wrestling business and what they achieved. Like us, you and I, not nearly on the same scale. It took a leap, decided to start this podcast to kind of doing what we're doing. For them, like their first pay-per-view, like took the leap, went for it, built up to it. And so just kind of really cool stuff. And we've seen it too and heard from, fans of the show that people they love when we cover ECW matches. And so we're happy to bring another one to everybody. So with that being said, let's get to the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
All right, here we are with the build. We're at a sold-out ECW arena. It's April 13th, 1997 for ECW's first ever pay-per-view. I remember, obviously I subscribed to the dirt sheets growing up. So every single week, leading up to this show, and really, gosh, it felt like 6 or 12 months up to this pay-per-view, it was always, will ECW be on pay-per-view? Will ECW get cleared for pay-per-view? Can they get into Viewer's Choice, right? And some of these other pay-per-view companies. And so it was always, there was this massive build for ECW being on pay-per-view, because, I was one of those people who, I never went to ECW shows. I didn't live in Philadelphia. I had never been to one. It wasn't an easily accessible thing. Again, this is like 2 a.m. on your local access channel. You'd get ECW Hardcore TV, which would be an hour. But, you didn't see a lot of what took place, or you'd hear things, or you'd have to buy tapes online. So we all really wanted this ECW pay-per-view to happen. We finally got it. and there were a lot of stop and start. They'd have momentum, and then something bad would happen, and the pay-per-view companies would get scared and wouldn't want to have ECW on pay-per-view. Then they get close again, and something else bad would happen, and it was stop, start before they actually were able to do it. And so, I found this excerpt from Keller leading up to the pay-per-view, and he said, in fact, very few within the industry seem to give ECW much of a chance to succeed on pay-per-view. Other than the plugs on WWF television a few weeks back, ECW's exposure nationally has been nil. When originally conceived, the idea was ECW would take the country by storm, promoting its unique style of wrestling in an aggressive ad campaign nationwide. Instead, ECW has essentially only plugged its pay-per-view on its TV show, which still has very limited national penetration, and a few weeks ago on WWF Raw. So going into this, I mean, the media, if you will, was basically, yeah, this probably isn't going to work. They're going to do this one show. They're going to take a bloodbath financially, or they're going to piss people off because it's going to be too edgy, and it's never going to happen again. Look, ECW ended up doing 22 pay-per-views. So, I know it's, ECW failed. They went out of business. They lost money. The WWE had to prop them up financially, but they still did 22 pay-per-views, okay? It's just such an interesting time because, again, there was no social media. Like, ECW would still exist if it was in this day and age because they would have grown organically through social media, and they would have been able to have online pay-per-views, and they would have, maybe not gotten a traditional TV deal, but they would have figured out ways to make money. And it's a shame. I mean, it was just really tough. So, Keller says, they're a national ad campaign. They didn't have the money to do a national ad campaign. There was no social media. So it's just really interesting, how much harder in a lot of ways it was from a business standpoint to create awareness for your product. But obviously they exceeded the expectations that they had. Another interesting quote was from Paul Heyman, who said, "I don't think the wrestling community understands what this pay-per-view is about. This pay-per-view is about whether this company can play by the rules, whether ECW is a controllable product." What he's saying is, we've been given a chance. We can't F it up. If it's too edgy, if it's too over the top, if it's too vulgar, we're never going to be allowed to do this again. So it was about ECW saying, yes, we can produce this pay-per-view. The building's not going to lose power. The technology's not going to work. We're going to be able to produce it, number one. And then number two is, it's not going to be so over the top that you're going to find it too offensive or too vulgar to be able to air on pay-per-view. So they accomplished that. They executed the pay-per-view, and they were able to, keep it relatively tame in comparison to some of the stuff they had done. So they were able to do it. They had 66. Yeah, go ahead.
Like, I find it super interesting because, like, even sitting here, like, kind of listening to you talk about this, it's some of the same arguments that we were hearing for AEW and why they were going to fail. Like, they couldn't put it on a pay-per-view. Like, they don't have the exposure. Like, it's going to be a one-off type thing. And here we are, months later, me having been to do a live show, and they're still kind of touring and doing their thing. I think it's funny. It's really comical to me how sometimes we can view the business.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair. I mean, and again, I know it's 2020 hindsight, but in both those cases, whether you're talking AEW more recently or ECW back in the day, I mean, why would you have not thought they'd be successful? ECW had a pretty good fan following. They ended up getting, a 0.26 buy rate, which is 100,000 buys. So there was a thirst for this product. Same with AEW. Why would you think they wouldn't be successful? So I know there's lots of like failed wrestling promotions, bad ideas, but this wasn't like the XWF. This wasn't like Heroes of Wrestling or some of the train wreck stuff that's taken place. I mean, in both these situations, you had enough fan interest that you should know that they can be successful. So,
I thought you were going to say the XFL.
Well, hey, my money's on the XFL working this time, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
So I had mentioned that there was some of this stuff behind the scenes documented. There's a great documentary called Beyond the Mat, which if you haven't seen, go find it. I'm sure you can find it online, or I think it might be streaming on Amazon if I'm not mistaken. But they had the great pre-show speech by Paul Heyman that's now become famous. And I just want to read this excerpt real quick. There are 17 million homes that have availability for this show tonight that will pay $20, hopefully, for the privilege to see you guys do what you have done for 3.5 years. Thank Terry Funk for all that he has done for this company, for helping to put us on the map, for being unselfish in selfish times, for taking the young guys and showing them a better way. Tonight, we have a chance to say, yeah, you're right. We're too extreme. We're too wild. We're too out of control. We're too full of our own shit. Or we have a chance to say, hey, fuck you. You're wrong. Fuck you. We're right. Because you all have made it to the dance. Because believe me, this is the dance. You know, we hear that
good speech.
We hear that ECW is like a cult. Well, you know what? Paul Heyman was a fucking cult leader, right? I mean, it's just, you know, you would have ran through a damn wall for him. I mean, I'm sitting there reading this. I'm thinking, yeah, I would have done a balcony dive for this guy. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the Barely Legal show, but basically this was built around a handful of matches. Shane Douglas and Pitbull 2, which was viewed as a disappointment. Then the Taz Sabu match, which had about an 18-month build, kind of impossible to, you know, meet the expectations for that, but it was still delivered with a really good match. Then it had the three-way match with a chance to wrestle for the ECW World Heavyweight title. That was Terry Funk, Sandman, and Stevie Richards, which Terry Funk would win. And then the reason we're here, which is the Terry Funk Raven world title match. So overall, you know, far from being the best ECW pay-per-view they ever did, but it was solid. It delivered. It had some really good matches. Also had some stuff that maybe didn't, you know, meet or exceed the expectations, but overall, really strong effort. So, Jeff, as always, from a storyline standpoint, how did we get to Terry Funk at age 53 wrestling for a world heavyweight title for ECW on their first pay-per-view?
Yeah, so we'll start with Raven. Raven and Sandman, they'd actually been, I'll just say, trading the ECW championship for over a year, just kind of back and forth. He had actually last won it. It was December 7th, 1996. Of course, this match being April 13th. And so he was still the champion at this time. But they had, you know, him and Sandman kind of some back and forth with it that whole time. He had really defended it, though, against a lot of different people. You know, the names you know, Tommy Dreamer, Stevie Richards, RVD, just a bunch of different people. Before we talk about this match, though, between Terry and Raven, we do have to talk about the match that Tom talked a little bit about before, which was the three-way match. So for starters, Terry Funk, he started in wrestling in 1965. 32 years before this match.
1965. Oh my God.
So, Tom, I kind of Googled it. I did a little bit of work. I'm trusting just the internet on this one, and I know you have no idea because it's not in the notes, but do you know the first time Terry Funk had a retirement match? What year?
Okay, so I don't know if this was the first one, but I do remember there was a retirement match against Bret Hart, and I want to say like around this period of time.
1983.
Oh my God.
was Terry Funk's first retirement match. So you missed it by about 12, 13 years.
All right. So who was it against? Where was it?
I did not look into it fully. And so, but that was according, like, when internet let us know one of those, like, we'll dig it up too and kind of look at it. But just real quick, when I was looking at it, when we got a little bit of a break, we can check it out too.
Because he did I want to say late 90s. It would have been when Bret was still in the WWF. So it might have been 98 where he did, him and Bret had a match in Amarillo, Texas.
It was a non-title, and I have some of those notes for later. So yes, I got you covered on that one. So, but he really was the old guard trying to help the younger guys over. So he used to be like that traditional Southern style match, but then went to this more kind of violent hardcore style. And he was willing to help, which before this started, Eastern Championship Wrestling, which we know became Extreme Championship Wrestling after Shane Douglas, bunch of different things happening there. So, but he was there to kind of really give some notoriety to Extreme Championship Wrestling. So he had a set schedule with them. He was also doing some time in Japan, but, and when we say younger guys and help them get over, like these at the time, maybe, but like nowadays, like this was like Shane Douglas, Sandman, Sabu, his own protege, Tommy Dreamer, like young guys, but not really. So the deal on this card was between Stevie Richards, Sandman, Terry Funk. One of them was going to get a shot at the championship that night at Barely Legal. So there wasn't much of a build, it was really just supposed to be like kind of a one-off event. that this was a few months shy of his 53rd birthday. Terry, came out, picked up the win over Stevie Richards and Sandman in that match. And then immediately thereafter, Raven came out to the ring to start the match. So their match, the three-way though, it had trash cans, it had barbed wire, it had steel chairs, it had Terry Funk doing a moonsault to pin Sandman, which is how he got the win, getting labeled by the Pro Wrestling Torch 4 stars. So a really good
classic
match.
And the classic Terry Funk moonsault that was more of kind of like it's when I used to try to do a moonsault in the pool. It was like a kind of, you got about halfway around, but you didn't quite do like a straight backflip. Yeah. It was ugly as hell, but it's
not Charlotte. That's for sure. So
no.
So, following that match, like I said, the music's still playing after that match. Raven's in the ring, ready to go with Terry Funk just dead in the ring. So Tom, what do you got?
Good stuff. The only other thing I'll add to this is, Terry Funk was 53 at the time. Taker's 54 right now. Chris Jericho's 49. I remember thinking Terry Funk was like so old, but in reality, I mean, there's still guys that are performing now that are around that age.
Yeah,
I think it's just safe to say that Terry Funk maybe looked and moved around a bit more weathered than some others his age at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's all I have. I got a lot of thoughts for us to cover after the match, but excited to welcome Raven back to the Payoff. One of our favorite guests, I think, and love having him. His insight is just incredible. His memory's great of a lot of things. I think you guys are going to love the interview, and then we'll talk about how the match was received and our thoughts following it. So with that being said, we're going to jump into the Payoff. If you want to watch along on the network, it's the 2-hour, 33-minute mark. 2 hours, 33 on the dot of ECW Barely Legal. You can also find it on various streaming platforms as well. And again, same deal. It's right when Raven enters the ring following the three-way match. So with that, it's time for the Payoff.
Oh, it's time for the Payoff.
All right, we're here with Raven, Barely Legal 1997.
We're still here. We're still here from last week. We're still doing this on the same day. Who you ribbing?
Oh God, you just broke the whole mystique of this show.
I killed it.
All right, so we're here watching this match, Barely Legal 97. Tell us about this evening. Tell us about just everything. I'm just fascinated by this whole match and this whole evening for you.
All right, so we're running out of time on the pay-per-view. They were supposed to go like, I don't know, let's say 15. And then supposed to leave like 12 for me and Funk or something like that. And these guys went so long. And Paulie's flipping out. He's like, the paper, and it's the first pay-per-view they had. So, if the show would have went off the air without Terry Funk beating me for the title, winning the title after all the buildup, it would have been horrible, for the people at home watching. They would have revolted. He would have had to give money back or I don't know. Anyway, so Paulie's like, you got to go now. I go, I can't. It's not my spot, Paulie. He's like, you got to go. And he's so nervous. He's flipping out. And I'm like, no, they'll get it. They'll get it done in time. They'll leave me enough time. All I got to do is let Funk beat me. So don't worry about it. So he's flipping out. My roommate was a foot surgeon. And he was the company doctor. So Terry Funk just got the keg thrown on his head or something.
Oh, God.
Outside the ring from Sandman. So he was we called him the Quack, even though he was a legit surgeon, doctor, and he was the company doctor because Paulie needed a doctor at ringside, and I'm like, my roommate's a doctor, you want to use him? He's like, yeah, sure. So he came, and so he's gonna have a spot later on, and what happens is when he's gonna check on so during my spot. During my part of the match, a little bit after this with Dreamer and a little after this with Sandman and Stevie and Funk when this ends, I'm going to be beating Funk up, I believe. Like I said, I haven't seen this in years. And and Funk's going to be bleeding and he's beat up. And so, because he's older and so he's going to, they're going to bring out the doctor, he's in a suit. He's going to come out. I think he's in a suit, either that or scrubs, one of the two. He's going to come out and check on Funk to see if he can continue. But so in the back, Paulie's flipping out, and Paulie's going, you got to go now. And he's like, Paulie, relax. He's like totally calm. He's like, and Paulie's freaking out. And he's telling me the story later. He's like, Paulie, relax. And finally, Paulie's like, you got to go now. He goes, it's not my spot. Which is so funny because he's like a civilian, he's not a pro wrestler, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just does the business from being my roommate. So then finally, Paulie goes, you got to go. You got to go. He's like, Paulie, relax. I save lives. But he's a foot doctor. He doesn't save any lives.
Yeah. Well, and didn't the generator blow like right after the show ended too?
Yeah. I believe the generator blew right after the show ended too. So Paulie right now is in the back freaking out, just totally wigging out. Because these guys, I don't know why, but they went so long. It was ridiculous. But I didn't care because if they're having a great match, let them have a great match. You know what I mean? I don't care. It doesn't affect me. All I got to do is come out there and lose, So that's no deal.
Yeah. So, all right, walk us through. You're working at the WWF. You obviously want to get back in the ring. When did you create the Raven character? What made you think of it? Like, what was the process of developing that?
Wait, hang on. Sandman just did his patented spot where he puts a ladder.
Yeah, and it ended up in the 5th row.
Yeah, he puts a ladder against the top rope, and then he bends the guy over so he's standing over the ladder. Then he jumps off the top rope onto the ladder on the outside, which does
flips it over. Yeah.
What's the thing called? A teeter totter.
Yeah.
What's that thing really called, though?
I think that's what, or I don't know. I'll remember.
Anyway, so he does one of those, and the thing flips, but it barely hits Stevie and flies out into the 15th row. It's freaking hilarious.
I don't know how you guys didn't get sued more. All right, so tell us how you came up with the Raven character. So where were you? What inspired it?
Okay, so I'm sitting there, and I knew, and I was talking to DDP, and I'm like, he's like, you can't. He goes, you want to be a chicken shit heel, which is great, but nobody's buying chicken shit heels anymore. Nobody wants to hire them. The business had changed a lot. Everybody was a tough guy. I was like, I don't want to be a tough guy. Everybody's a tough guy. I'd rather be a chicken shit heel. He's like, nah, you need to do something different if you're going to change. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you ought to go alternative because that's who you are, And I'm like, yeah. And then and so he suggests, he goes, like the Red Hot Chili Pepper guys, you're tattooed, you got long hair, you wear a leather jacket, you ought to do, think in that direction. So that was the jumping on point. And from there, one day I just was thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to call myself? What am I going to wear? What am I going to be? And I'm like, I go, and I remember watching The Crow. I go, The Crow is a good, it's kind of analogous to, the kind of character I was thinking of, dark, deep. It wasn't it. It wasn't it by any stretch of imagination, but it was, I was trying to come up with some reference points, you know what I mean? And then I thought, what's the character's name? Eric Draven. Draven, Raven. Quote the Raven, nevermore. And boom, I had a name and a catchphrase, just like that.
Now, are you working for the WWF when you came up with that?
Yeah,
what were you? Okay.
Yeah, so you're working for him.
Yeah, so I have this image of you like sketching the Raven characters. You're like in a suit and tie around the corner from Vince McMahon at Titan Towers.
No, I think I was either just leaving or I had left, but I was already on the way out the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I said Draven, Raven, or Raven, quote the Raven evermore. So I got a name and a catchphrase. And then the same day, I'm like, what am I going to wear? So I go, all right, what's trendy? Who am I trying to be? Tortured poetic soul, a misfit. Instead of wearing trunks, I'd wear shorts and wear them. And everybody cuts them off at the knee. That's the, shredded and the way I wear them, with some rips in it. I'm like, that's what I would wear. And then I was like, what else do I wear? And I go, leather jacket. And no, I go, I need some flannel in this. So I took a flannel shirt and I cut the sleeves off and I'm like, and I put it on with no sleeves to wrestle. And I'm like, nah, I look like Big Josh. I look like a lumberjack. So that's not it. So then I go, all right, what do? Oh, I'll just tie it around my waist. Boom, got that. This is all within like 5 minutes. The name, the outfit, everything. Wow. Then I get so now I got the jean shorts, the flannel around the waist. I go, I can wear I go, well, let's see, a leather jacket. I got to wear a leather jacket. So leather jacket. Boom. It's the one I had one anyway. That's all I wore was my leather jacket. And then I wore concert T-shirts. So I'm like, I get concert T-shirts. And now because I believe in wearing, you should have a dozen ring jackets. You need to have a lot of ring jackets to look like a star because to be a star, you got to look like a star. So you need to have ring jackets because, I mean, think about it. That was one of the reasons that Flair looked so much better than everybody else. Was he had a dozen of them at least, you know? And like, I remember, no offense to Terry Taylor, but he had one ring jacket. It was beautiful, but it was one. So, you know, after you've seen it a few times, then you're not impressed anymore. You know what I mean? It's still impressive as shit compared to everybody else's. But so I'm like, so I believed, I'm thinking, all right, so 4 weeks of TV. And I learned this years earlier in Portland. I figured it out. 4 weeks of TV and a pay-per-view, even though I wasn't doing them, was so you need 5 ring outfits, at least 5 ring jackets, because that way you can wear them for a year and people don't get really tired of them or get used to them because you're rotating them, you know. And so now I've in the ring now. I hit the ring. I guess I'm taking off all my outfit and I'm getting ready to beat up Funk. So I'm telling him to get up. Anyway, so I knew that I had like 12 or 15 ring jackets by the third year and by my third year in the business. And I used to make them for cheap. I'd buy I'd buy an old jean jacket, like in different styles of them. I'd put fringe on it or neon fabric, a Scotty the Body, Scotty Flamingo. And I had like 15 ring jackets. So I knew how important they were. But I'm like, Raven wouldn't wear anything but a leather jacket. So where do I get my variety from? And that's when I realized the concert shirt, because I always had big shoulders and arms, but I always had a bit of a belly. And I still do. And so I figured I'll wear a T-shirt to wrestle in and cut the sleeves off so my arms and shoulders will stand out, but I cover my belly. And I also have no chest, so that'll cover that too. Well, I mean, I gotta be honest, you know, I got no chest, I got a belly, and just had big arms and shoulders. So that worked out perfect for a ripped up T-shirt. And then I could also wear a different T-shirt every single week. So I'd always have a different T-shirt, you know, so I'd have variety in my outfit. Because that's important. So now I'm beating up Funk and he's bleeding like he's a stuck pig. And see how he's like is making that face. He's making that face to tighten his face to get more blood to pump out.
Wow.
So he's squeezing his face, making him. So all I got to do is keep beating him up until he rolls out or whatever, I think. And there's a doctor. There's my roommate. Wow, he was heavy. Holy crap, was he fat? That fat bastard.
You still buddies with him?
What's that?
You still buddies with him?
Yeah. I just talked to him the other day. So he's checking on Funk, and Funk's delirious, but he's like, they're like, can Funk continue? Can he continue? He's like, yeah. So I guess, so I come over and start beating him up. My roommate jumps out. He says, yeah, let it go.
So we have a foot doctor that's checking on guys that are getting.
We don't know he's a foot doctor. We just think he's a ringside physician. But they go to the same med school. I mean, he's actually a surgeon.
Yeah.
You know. But that's why it's so funny when he goes, Paulie, I save lives. So I just keep beating up Funk, and I think I'm going to go for a slam, and he's going to roll me up or something. I don't know. I don't even know if he makes a comeback.
Did you know you were going to WCW at this point?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I mean, it was a few months after that you left. I didn't know if you knew. I didn't know if that's why Funk went over in this match.
No, he was going over anyway. I'm sure, but this wasn't. I don't think he was. I don't think I was leaving quite yet, because I think it was the next pay-per-view where I put over Dreamer.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
Wrestle. I knew I was leaving. I didn't know I was leaving yet. I don't think. But I don't know. It's been 25 years, so I mean, it's a long time.
Yeah. So they just wanted a happy ending for this show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have any issue?
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
But the irony was the poster was just Sabu and Taz, because Taz made the posters.
Oh.
So somehow me and Funk didn't make it onto the posters, you know, even though that was the main event was, you know, I mean, not that Sabu and Taz were in a huge draw. They were an enormous draw.
Yeah.
But somehow it was only their faces and not me or Funk.
Yeah. Well, that's back when they actually used to build the matches. I mean, that had a huge build. You and Dreamer had a huge build.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole idea. I mean, what I don't get is why companies don't do this. They build everything for a pay-per-view, but what they should, here's my word, the world's worst planches.
You know what? You look like Steamboat in there compared to what we saw Sandman doing earlier. So
you know what it is it's so sloppy because of my lack of athleticism. But with Ted Petty, Flyboy Rocco Rock said it best. He goes, Oh, then I just got to whack my roommate. That was great. I just punched the doc. But he, Flyboy Rocker Rock goes, yours look more realistic. He goes, because you look like you're actually taking your life in your hands when you're diving over the top. So here comes my crew of people. Who were they? Let's see. Out there. Why are they out there? I guess, now the doctor's being carted off by Damage Control. I think that's Reggie Bennett.
Yeah, it was.
Now. She pile drives Funk. So Funk's dead. He's dead now. I loved having a dog and pony show with me. That's what I always called it.
Yeah.
You know, like because there's an art form and there's a psychology to having sidekicks and flunkies and knowing when to use them, when not to use them. You know, I always tried to have the referee. See, the referee was down, even though it would have been allowed, you know, because it's ECW. But I always tried to do shit behind the ref's back because people forget that it's not against the rules, and so there's heat for it. You know, why do it in front of the ref when you can do it behind his back and make it more cheap?
Well, it's funny because, you know, the excuse of like why you guys used to build these long arcing storylines would be, oh, well, you know, you guys still had weekly TV back then. So it's not, you know, you did big shows. You worked the same city every Saturday night. So you still
we worked ECW Arena every 3 weeks.
I'm sorry, every 3 weeks. But you still, it's not like you guys you were only doing a couple super shows. You're still doing a bunch of shows, yet you were able to build, you know, you and Dreamer for a year and a half, Sabu and Taz.
Well, we were able, me and Dreamer, I mean, Sabu and Taz, I think they built that for like 6 months, you know, but you can always build a story. You just have to have good storytelling. It's a skill. Like, I consider myself a storyteller more than a wrestler, you know. Paulie considers himself a storyteller. You know, we're telling story. That's what I love about wrestling. It's why I never really went to Japan for any length of time. I went I think I went like 6 times, but
watch this choke slam.
Dudley's going through the tables, through like a double stack of tables. Whoosh. Ow, that looked painful.
Yeah.
But I never went to Japan because it's mostly, I mean, maybe now it's a little different, but it's mostly just matches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to be in a soap opera. That's what I love about wrestling, was the soap opera aspect. And so what was I saying before about, I forget. There's a point I was going to finish up, but I forget what it was. So now we're Funk's down and out. We had all the dog and pony show come running through. Dreamer got attacked up on the commentator's booth in the crow's nest. And then he turned the tables on Big Dick Dudley. Now he's coming after me. He threw a cannon at me, but I caught it and threw it back at him. Dreamer, I love that. So I went for a hip toss. Dreamer turned it into a DDT. And now Funk's rolling. He's trying to build up the crowd.
I don't know if you remember this or not. So
what?
So they ring the bell there, and there was a little bit of confusion. I don't know if you remember what happened. Okay, so it was just the ring bell that was messed up.
It was a screw up.
Got it. Okay.
All about that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I wasn't sure what happened. I assumed that because they looked like he called 2 count, you kicked out, but then they rang the bell, so threw it off a little bit. Yeah. Still an awesome finish.
It really did, but because that was the whole idea of the false finish, was it was obvious. Like whenever I do, like I try to play on fans' innate knowledge of wrestling, that when this would happen, the run-in happens, boom, it's a false finish. The guy's gonna get pinned, and I'll give you a way. So then I would do the opposite. I would kick out or have him kick out. Like what I always told my opponents was, if you're going to go to the top rope on me, and if you're going to land on me, I want you to go to the top rope and stay there forever. Take forever, because the people are going to be convinced that you're going to miss when you take too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you're busy watching the joyous celebration of Terry bleeding Funk.
Yep, and then it cuts out right after this. It was the end of the show. They
so
didn't play music. Yeah.
Point real quick. So if the guy goes to the top rope and he's going to land on me, I make sure he takes a long time. But if he's going to miss, I make sure he goes right up and misses. Like most guys, if they're going to miss, they go up there and they take forever. You know, and that way it covers quotation marks. It covers them for missing. That's why they missed, because they took too long. But that's what everybody expects, so I don't do that. I do the exact opposite.
Last question for you. What's your proudest moment as a performer in the business?
One of them, I don't know which. It changes. If you ask me tomorrow, it'll be something different. But one of them is, wow, what a great shot! I never saw that.
Yeah, that's how it went off the air. That was it.
Yeah, all those fans hugging bloody Terry Funk. It's awesome. This is a different time.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things, one of my most proud moments, is when I know what it was. Something I was telling you either earlier or in the last episode was that when I got into ECW, Paulie thought it was all tweeners. And so he didn't have baby faces or heels. And I told Paulie, I said, look, I'm going to be a heel. You have to have a heel and a baby face to build a match. Even if it's a baby face match, somebody has to stop the guy and beat him down, even if he doesn't cheat to do it. But one guy always has to come back. And so I made sure I was a heel, and I said, everybody I face is going to be a baby face. And Paulie went from having the whole company be tweeners to all faces and heels. And that was really because I made a line in the sand that I wasn't going to be a tweener. I was going to be a heel, and I was going to make them hate me. I mean, sure, there's going to be 10, 15% that were going to like you anyway, but I would never play to that 10 or 15%. And I would always make sure that I went out of my way to try and to detract those 10 and 15%, to not play to them, and to always maintain being a heel. Like I wouldn't sign autographs, in the building or anything like it. If there was a merch table there, I wouldn't have went to the merch table. I would have done. I did because I believe in it. You know what I mean? And if the people believe I'm a dick, then they're going to want to pay money to see me get my ass whipped.
Yeah, it's a lost art. And I mean, from a storytelling standpoint, it's tough to lose yourself in the match if you don't love one guy and hate the other guy.
Yeah, and it's why. I mean, like, even if you have two heels fighting it, heel versus heel, one of them still has to be more of a heel than the other. It's like if you watch the UFC, it's more exciting when one guy starts beating up the other guy, but then the guy makes a comeback, right?
Yep.
Always more exciting. And so that's what wrestling is. The guy always gets to make a comeback. So I always tell people if they're in a babyface match, pick one of you to stop the other guy and beat him up for a while for what is considered a set of heat. You're not being a heel. You just happen to have the advantage, but you're going to tell a better story that way.
Yeah. Well, this was fantastic. We appreciate having you here on The Payoff.
There's still one more episode to go.
Well, we're going to record that a few months from now, probably.
Okay, so that'll air. So we'll record that in 5 minutes, and then we'll air that for the third show?
That's right. Put on a different shirt. Sound a little different when we come back.
Not a problem.
Take care.
Bye.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
As always, of course, got to thank Raven to take the time for talking to us. We know he's a busy guy. He's got his own show, the Raven Effect. Of course, check that out as well, too. But we always appreciate when we have the opportunity to talk about him. He's just got such cool things to say. And so we appreciate that, of course. So, Tom, I'll let you go first here. What did you think about The Payoff?
Yeah, you're right. Raven's podcast is awesome, and make sure to follow him on Twitter and tag him and let him know you listen to this because he's super interactive with everyone, and he's a great follow on Twitter. So, dude, I got a bunch of stuff here. Like I said, Raven's one of our favorite guests. He was great. This old guy winning the title, I don't know why, but I love it. Okay, there's just, for some reason, I love it. Like, they could do it more often and I'd be happy with it, right? If you gave Taker the title right now, I would dig it, okay? If you gave Hulk Hogan the damn title, I would dig it. I mean, I just think it's cool, right? Like, when Hogan came back after he lost to The Rock and then beat Triple H for the title, I dug it, okay? I love the, Babe Ruth comeback out of retirement, old dog winning the title. I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, not that you want to do it all the time, but I am totally cool with, every year, every other year, every couple years, whatever, finding someone, even like Goldberg winning the title, right? Like that to me is fun and it's cool. And I don't think it takes away from the young guys. It doesn't have to be a long run, but I love nostalgia. Always have, always will. So I dig it, man. It's not like Raven, looks bad losing. He was still a badass, still went on to do great things, but I loved having Funk as champion. this wasn't the best wrestling match, but it was entertaining as hell. You know,
No.
I mean, so that's why it's like these 5-star rankings. I mean, I kind of laugh at them because, you know, it's like the crowd was going nuts. The pop was massive. It served its purpose. It was a sloppy 9-minute wrestling match, but who cares? It was awesome, right? The choke slam on Big Dick Dudley, man, oh, was it horrible? I mean, it was so bad. I think the good thing about an ECW crowd 3.5, 4 hours into a show is the building's hot. They're all hammered. So I don't think they noticed that the guy just kind of jumped and wasn't like, you know, actually choke slammed. So place went nuts. It served its purpose, but man, was it an ugly choke slam. Those are my notes. Let's talk storyline standpoint. What happened following this match?
Yeah, so just to share a little bit about the event itself, one of the write-ups said the show was a very slightly toned-down version of the product with a high work rate, a few, well, not death-defying, but certainly injury-defying spots, some sloppiness and nervousness, several booking swerves, a few technical problems, some excellent matches, and undoubtedly the best pregame show for a pay-per-view in the history of the business. In the end, the show was stolen by the two oldest performers on the show. The first one of pro wrestling's bona fide legends, the other one of the most underrated, enduring great workers in the history of the industry. So,
Wow.
high marks there. Yeah, high marks when you think about it. So, but really cool. And like you said, like it was their first pay-per-view. We got into it a little bit. I'll give my specific thoughts about the match when we give our scores. But one of those where, yeah, you can't, you know, this is one of those where you can't underrate or kind of overlook just how important it really was. Even if it was just, you know, another day in April, it really wasn't. And so that did really mean a lot. So as for Terry Funk, he held the belt actually for roughly, it was 5 months. And it was Sabu who beat him. It was a barbed wire match at Born to be Wired. And if you remember this one, this is the match where they took the ropes down and they replaced it with barbed wire. So this was early. It was August 1997, and both of them had to be cut out of the barbed wire at the end of this match. The video's crazy. Check it out. But
so that's one of those where it's like, hey, so I know you watch that like fake wrestling stuff. Tell me about it. Oh, well, there was a pay-per-view. It was called Born to be Wired. Play on words. It wasn't wild. It was wired. The reason for wired is because they, instead of having ropes like you'd think of in a boxing ring, they had barbed wire surrounding it. They were using it to throw each other into, wrap each other from. It was real barbed wire. They had to be cut out of it at the end of the match.
You just can't even imagine a match like that. I mean, unless it's on like, you know, kind of the indie scene or something like that. Like seeing something like that in WWE would never happen nowadays. Like,
No.
you know, I still want them to bring back the God, and I always forget the name of it. With they surround the ring with fire.
Inferno match.
I would kill to have the return of an Inferno match. I think that is what WWE needs to get me back, is someone is billed to an Inferno match.
I think that I remember the first Inferno match, which was Taker and Kane after they had their initial match, but I think they did it one other time, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's been 2 Inferno matches.
That's the thing. Like, we always talk about like, some of these match types are getting overused, or like Hell in a Cell, it's not used for the like appropriate kind of time and when it was done. There was a couple Undertaker versus Kanes. Kane was involved in most of them. There was some Triple H as well too had one with him. And I just did a very quick search, so this is not fully researched, but Kane and MVP had a match too. So that was at least on this list on WWE.com, the last one, which was 2006. So bring me back an Inferno match, I'd be a happy man. So but they had this match where he lost the belt to Sabu. This is like, Tom, you referenced it a little bit here, but a little bit more details on some of this one. So, and I'll kind of read the write-up that I had on this one. So in September of that same year, so just a month later, a show was held in Funk's hometown of Amarillo. It was called WrestleFest, 50 Years of Funk, and was both his own show, and a celebration of the careers of him, his father, his brother. They're all in the wrestling industry. So at the time, like you said, he lost to Bret Hart not a retirement match, but a match. And so it was the main event of this. It was a non-title match, and so he lost one. But it was before the match where Paul Heyman, he actually gave him a belt, Terry a belt. It was paid the kind of write up. It was written, or excuse me, the write up as it was written was that it was this belt that he presented to Terry was bought by the wrestlers. I'll get it out. It actually declared him the lifetime ECW World Heavyweight Champion, and the belt was bought by the wrestlers. So kind of cool if that piece of it's true. I'll do a little bit more research and kind of see what we find out. But that was that show that you were wrestling. Yes, he did wrestle Brett. You do remember that correctly. And so, and like we said, even though he retired 1983, still out here 1997, kind of doing his thing, which is just great. And so he has that. And so, of course, not a retirement after he left ECW on this one. He showed up in WWE. It was December of 1997. Of course, it was Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, the two of them. And if you've listened to our previous episode with Billy Gunn, this is where we get into Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie taking on the New Age Outlaws. We got dumpsters, just all kinds of crazy things. And then, of course, later again, 1998, Terry Funk retired again. And so can't keep him away, though. He's done a whole lot more since. He still out there, doing what he does. Like just bounce back and forth. He did a little bit more time in ECW as well, too. But I would be interested for a future episode. Like we need to figure out who has retired the most in wrestling. And so, because you always think Ric Flair has retired a lot, but
I don't even know if anybody comes close to Terry Funk.
I don't know how. And so maybe it's just part of the character now. Like,
here's another question I want to know is who's been fired the most? That's got to be Marty Jannetty.
Your buddy. Yeah, it has to be. It's got to be. And so there's just so many. There's somebody we're not thinking of. I'm sure, but yeah. How many retirement matches does it take? And so, but yeah, how many times can you announce retirement? Mark Henry did it well, but swerved us. But Terry Funk, you never know which one's going to be the real one. But good for him still being out there doing what he does. So. Of course, too, as Tom kind of alluded to in this one, Dreamer and Raven kind of getting involved in the choke slam and all that other stuff. But it was actually 2 months later that Raven left for WCW. Of course, we can, kind of check out our previous episode where we talk about how he lost the belt as well, kind of later at that time. It was Tommy Dreamer, 1990. So feel free, kind of check that out. We've got some more info from that previous episode. So cool stuff. Of course, Terry just being out there. Really, as we said it before, putting over the young guys, quote unquote, young guys, and doing what he does. But I think it's just super cool. I had a ton of fun kind of reading up on this one. And so, Tom, what are the thoughts that you have on the aftermath?
None really. I mean, I think that, this didn't have a massive build and it wasn't intended to, and there was no major storyline arc to it. It really just was a feel-good moment, isolated for that pay-per-view. I think it served its purpose, and it was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Yeah. So I'm curious what the write-ups were for this one.
Yeah, so while I said the Pro Wrestling Torch, they gave the match before this one 4 stars. They gave this match 2 stars. And so kind of way down from that. But the kind of Wrestling Observer newsletter, the write-up, it kind of talks about some different things here, of course, but just some little kind of notes that were kind of sprinkled throughout this one. I won't read the whole thing because it is a little bit of a play-by-play of it. But the doctor that came out to the match, that was actually Raven's roommate at the time in real life. And so kind of funny of how Raven knocking out the ref at that time. Like Tom said, a little bit like that quote unquote choke slam, which I have strong feelings about what that was, but I'm saving that. I'm ready for that one. But he said the spot looked terrible in that Dreamer didn't get Dudley off his feet, and Dudley obviously jumped off the ledge through the 3 tables, which got the biggest pop of the show for the fall from the highest height through the most tables of the night. just writing that sentence alone, like this is where else are you going to be able to write that sentence except in wrestling? And so,
well, I'm still trying to grasp the idea that, like Raven had a roommate. Like imagine, you're working at 9 to 5, you're, doing some accounting in a cubicle. You put in a good day of work. You come home, you're eating dinner, hanging out, watching some TV, and your roommate comes in. He's got blood all over his face. He's got thumbtacks in his hair. Like, hey, Scott, how you doing, buddy?
Yep. Yeah. Time to help pull out thumbtacks. Like that's the life of a wrestler. So,
yeah. You thought you had you thought you had a rough day because your, manager chewed you out.
right. Somebody's got to pull them out, if they're in your back or whatever, like it's always the fun part. So, but kind of reading the last little bit of this here, Dreamer hit the ring, had a short brawl with Raven and DDT'd him. Funk covered Raven, who kicked out, but the bell ringer blew it and rang the bell anyways. Funk then inside cradled Raven, and the ref counted the fall, and the bell rang again. Under normal circumstances, this would have been so anticlimactic because of the bell ringer screwing up. But things were at such a frenzy at this point that it was okay. The place went nuts with fans hugging Funk as the show went off the air. 3.25 stars. So, we've heard the story before. It's kind of the legend of it here. But then like just after the show went off the air, like them losing power and like generators blowing and all these other things. And so kind of crazy how the universe works that way. But that's all right. There was, of course, after the show, a bunch of people came out, Dreamer, the Eliminators, Funk, got in the ring, thanked the crowd for being there. But like you said, Tom, like at that point, after a few hours of kind of watching it, like the bell stuff and just the match itself, like fans, they were going to cheer. They didn't care. And so it was worth it. So, yeah. So Tom, scores I feel like are all over the place here for this one. We've got, 3.25 on this one. We've got 2 as well. The match before we've got 4 that kind of gave us this match, like just a lot happening. But what are your thoughts on the write-ups?
Yeah. I tend to agree. I mean, it's so interesting because, okay, let's just play this game here real quick. WrestleMania this year, I don't know what the main event's going to be. We really have no idea, but whatever. There's going to be a main event. Let's just say, Seth Rollins is in there, against Roman Reigns. I'll just use 2 guys as an example. Okay. And can you imagine if, there was a massively botched choke slam and then they like messed up the 3 count and the bell rang early? Like, I mean, the crowd would just boo the shit out of it. Twitter would explode with how bad it was.
Yep.
Now, I understand there was no Twitter back then, but the point is, and that was covered in the review, is, dude, ECW was just so loved and the fans were so loyal. And it was like this feeling of, hey, we're all in this together and we want this pay-per-view to be successful. And those fans weren't going to boo. They weren't going to chant, you fucked up. Why not? Because they wanted this to be successful. They wanted this pay-per-view to be great. So it's almost like they cheered along and participated versus shitting on it because, so any other crowd, any other night, this probably would have been a disaster, but it just worked and no one cared. It's wild how that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, of course, we have the reviews and kind of the experts and what they say. But then Tom and I, we love sharing our scores. So of course, every week we give our payoff score. There's no intense rubric to it. It's just 1 through 10, kind of how we feel about the match, the build, the crowd, the commentary, the in-ring product, the aftermath, just whatever Tom and I are feeling like on this day. So no formula, just what 2 guys are thinking about the match. And so, of course, Tom and I, we don't talk about it ahead of time, so we never really know where this is going to go, but that makes it a little bit fun. So, Tom, I think, want me to go first? I'll go first.
Yeah, I went first last. I feel like I've gone first the last few times. So
we never track this stuff. You can tell how organized we are here at the payoff. So, but that's okay. So I will say I'm going to give it a 6.5. Well, I understand the importance of, I'm taking it from a strictly like match perspective, and that's probably high actually, because this match itself wasn't a match to me. It was like there was a lot of storytelling, which I think is perfectly okay too. But I think that like watching the match as a whole, Funk didn't really wrestle a whole lot. There was like he was dead when the match started. He was still pretty dead when the match ended. It's thanks to some kind of outside interference, things like that. The only reason why, and like distractions, why, he eventually got there. But I think, and it was a great pop. I don't think you can overlook the pop. Like we said, it's one of the, I have it in my notes here. Like we talk about like Austin and we think about like the Crimson Mask of him at that point. Like, Funk. Whoa. Like Funk was, not squeaky clean at the end of this match here either. Like he was bleeding pretty good, like throughout the night. And so that was one of those too, where it's like, he looked rough. Like he was already like, he's an older guy. He was out there. He's doing what he do. He's definitely doing what, stuff that I can't do even at that age. But I think we like looking at that. It's just one of those, like you said, it's really almost like a forgotten thing. Like it's just, people don't always, it doesn't come up very much. And so like, and that choke slam, like you referred to it as a choke slam. I don't like, we can't even call it a choke slam. And like, even that write-up said, oh, Dreamer didn't get him up. It's like, you got like, knowing how the choke slam works, you got to put a little bit into it yourself too. And he really did not do that. And so it more like, cause I even rewound it a couple times and like went back and I was like, what the hell? Like, did he push? I thought he pushed him. He didn't push him. Like it was supposed to be a choke slam through all the tables. The pop was crazy. Like that's one of the things you don't get. I feel like you don't get pops like that anymore for WWE. Like like they went crazy. Like and it's just one of those, like it's building and building to it. And like you said, they're not going to boo it at all. So, well, I think I understand the larger implications to it. Like the match itself and taking it strictly from that, like, I'm only going to be a 6.5. I can see other instances where I've give it like a 9, but like for whatever today, I'm going a 6.5.
Well, look, we've just been so desensitized to these big spots. Yeah. I remember, so I mean, I've shared this on here before, but I was at the, Mankind, Undertaker, Hell in the Cell falling off it. And I mean, it was incredible and it was wild. I also was there when Shane jumped off the cage onto Taker. Everyone knew it was going to happen. It was like, oh, yeah, Shane's going for the big spot. Oh, yeah, Shane's going to jump off the cage. I mean, it was still cool to see, but I mean, the pop wasn't the same, right? Like, it's just, that's the problem is we've just seen this stuff over and over again. I mean, even like New Jack doing his like balcony spots, eventually like they sort of, subsided because you just expected it at every pay-per-view. There was only so much height to jump off of. I mean, people just expected it. So my payoff score on this, I'm on the same thinking as you are here. I have this at a 7. I love the intent of let's get the old guy the title, and I love that. So I love the idea of it. The crowd went crazy. It was a happy ending to a great night. Obviously, the execution could have been better. I think this could have been like a 9, 9.5. Okay, I still loved it, but I think it could have been. I mean, I think if you went back and you tweaked a few things and did a few things differently, maybe involved Dreamer differently, I think you could have gotten to like a 9, 9.5. But 7, and if anything, I lean higher. So that's where I am and why I'm there. But that's all I have. Yeah.
I almost think like for me, I think you have to watch, and for anyone that's kind of going back and wants to check this out, I recommend actually watching the match before this too, because it gives like otherwise you kind of start it and Funk's dead and then Raven's there. And so I recommend anyone that's kind of taking the time to do it, go back and watch that match before. It was a good match. Like, and so it's one of those where, they did have some good back and forth. There were some crazy spots in that one too. And so I would recommend like that and almost looking at it as like a part 2 of an entire match because it sets the stage a little bit better. And I get it, the behind the scenes, like the whispers and things they might've been hearing about like building to, Raven losing the belt and all these other things. And all that you got to take knowing what we know now, but I would say watch that with this and it actually makes this better.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, so good stuff, of course, Tom. We love doing this. And so you got any other final thoughts, anything before we take this one home?
I got nothing. Fun show, fun night, fun match, great guest. Another awesome moment here on the Payoff. Big fan of this one.
Absolutely. So, of course, everybody, we got to thank once more Raven for joining us. Just awesome dude, like absolutely. And so find him on Twitter. He is at the Raven Effect. And so, and of course, as we already kind of said a little bit, you can hear him on his own podcast it's at the Raven Effect. And so make sure to check that out, you guys. And of course, we're back. We are bringing you episodes every week once again. Tom and I looking forward to recording, bringing new guests out here. We've got a few people lined up, so we're excited to bring that to you guys. So subscribe to The Payoff. We will bring it to you every Monday. Give us those 5 stars. That's what we like to see. Making sure that, those reviews help us get our name out there as well, too. And then, of course, spread the word about the show. We love interacting with fans. Tom and I talking to people, they love what we're doing, and then they tell their, friends that they have. And so, it's no secret. A lot of people like wrestling, and they like talking about this old wrestling and listening to the show and all this other stuff. And so we love doing this. So, subscribe, 5 stars, spread the word, everybody. And of course, on that social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, at Payoff Pod. So, Tom, any extreme closing here that you want to give us?
I got nothing, but I will give a quick, oh my God. And with that, thank you as always for joining us on The Payoff.